Sofia Almeida was only 23 when she signed the contract that would change her life forever. It wasn't a document of love. It was cold, legal, calculated. Every clause spelled out exactly what she was supposed to be: a wife on paper, a companion for appearances, a solution to a debt that wasn't hers. Leonardo Santoro, at 38, wasn't looking for love. He was looking for control. And she was trying to save her father from ruin. At the altar of the Fasano Hotel, surrounded by white flowers that looked more like a funeral than a wedding, Sofia felt his mechanical kiss. No warmth, no promise, just the bitter taste of a deal sealed. But what neither of them knew on that cold July morning was that some contracts can be rewritten by the heart. If this story speaks to you, please leave a like so more people can find it. Subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments, where are you listening from? Your support keeps this space alive, a place where real stories find the hearts that need to hear them. The July morning arrived in Rio de Janeiro, with that damp cold that seeps into your bones. Sofia Almeida stood in front of the hotel room mirror, staring at the reflection of a bride she didn't recognize. The dress was perfect. French lace, flawless tailoring, an open back that revealed her pale skin trembling ever so slightly. But the brown eyes staring back at her were empty. There was no spark of anticipation, no dream, no hope, only resignation. Her mother, Carmen, adjusted the veil for the 10th time, her trembling hands betraying the nervousness she tried to hide behind a forced smile. She didn't say a word, but Sofia could read every thought in that heavy silence. Forgive us, my daughter. Forgive us for this. The bankruptcy of her father's construction company had hit like a silent storm. 28 years of honest work destroyed by a partner who ran off with the investment money, leaving nothing but debts and lawsuits behind. Sofia could still remember the night she found her father crying in the kitchen, his head in his hands, whispering, "I'm going to lose everything. The house, my dignity, everything." That was when Leonardo Santoro appeared. A real estate tycoon with a fortune built through cold strategy, Leonardo was 38 and carried a reputation that entered every room before he did. People said he could turn abandoned lots into towers of glass and steel. They said he never lost a negotiation. They also said, in hushed voices, that his heart had been shattered years earlier, and ever since he treated everything, including people, like business transactions. The proposal came through the family's lawyer, Dr. Henrique, a man with thin glasses and a tie always perfectly aligned. Mr. Santoro is willing to settle all of Almeida Construction's debts, invest in rebuilding the company, and ensure financial stability for the family. In return, he requests a marriage to your daughter Sofia, a 2-year contract, renewable upon mutual agreement. Sofia still remembered the wave of nausea that hit her at those words, marriage, contract, as if they were synonyms. "Why me?" she had asked, her voice barely steady. Dr. Henrique adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Santoro requires a wife for corporate and public image reasons. He noticed you at a charity event at the Copacabana Palace 3 months ago. He thought you were suitable, as if she were property being appraised. But when Sofia saw the desperation in her father's eyes, when she saw her mother hiding unpaid utility bills, when she realized the home she grew up in would be auctioned off in 60 days, the decision became unavoidable. 'I accept,' she had said, and those 2 words sealed her fate. Now, 2 months later, Sofia walked down the stairs of the Fasano Hotel toward the hall where the ceremony would take place. The room was flawless. Crystal chandeliers casting golden light over tables decorated with white roses and hydrangeas. There was French champagne, elaborate canapes, musicians playing Vivaldi softly in the background. Everything had been planned by Leonardo's assistant, a woman named Patricia, who treated Sofia with the same cold efficiency she'd probably used to launch a new development project. Most of the guests were strangers, Real estate executives, investors, figures from Rio's high society. Sophia's family occupied only 3 tables in the back, looking painfully out of place among the impersonal luxury. And then she saw him. Leonardo Santoro stood beside the makeshift altar, his hands clasped in front of him, the navy blue suit tailored perfectly to his tall frame and broad shoulders. His black hair was neatly slicked back, revealing a face with sharp, striking features, a strong jawline, dark eyes that seemed to evaluate everything around him with surgical precision. He was undeniably handsome, but it was a cold, untouchable kind of beauty, like a marble sculpture meant to be admired, not touched. When his eyes met hers, he didn't smile. There was no magical moment, no spark like she had imagined as a little girl dreaming of her wedding day. There was only a subtle nod of acknowledgement, the way an executive might greet a client before a meeting. Sophia walked down the aisle of white petals, her legs trembling. Each step felt impossibly heavy. Her father's arm, which should have been a source of comfort, felt like a reminder of the transaction being finalized. Antonio squeezed her hand gently as he handed her to Leonardo, and she saw the tears he struggled to hold back. "Take care of her," her father whispered, so softly only Leonardo could hear. Leonardo simply inclined his head. No promise, no reassurance. The ceremony was brief and mechanical. The officiant, a middle-aged man with a monotonous voice, recited the vows as though reading from a menu. Sophia repeated the words, feeling them echo hollow in her mouth. Leonardo did the same, firm voice, no emotion whatsoever. "Do you take Leonardo Santoro as your lawful husband?" "I do." The word came out cracked, but it came out. "Do you take Sofia Almeida as your lawful wife?" "I do." Spoken with the same intonation he would probably use to approve a spreadsheet. Then came the moment Sophia feared. The kiss. Leonardo leaned in, and Sophia instinctively closed her eyes. But when his lips touched hers, there was no warmth, no tenderness. It was a technical kiss, fulfilling a requirement, lasting exactly 3 seconds before he pulled away. His lips were firm but lifeless, as if he were kissing an obligation, not a woman. Sophia opened her eyes and met his gaze. For a split second she thought she saw something, a crack in his armor maybe, but it was so fleeting she couldn't tell if it was real or a desperate projection of her own hope. The applause was polite, restrained. There was no excitement, no joyous celebration, just the sound of hands fulfilling a social formality. The reception passed in a blur of unfamiliar faces, forced smiles and empty greetings. Leonardo introduced her as "my wife," with the same tone he might use to say, "my business partner." He rested his hand lightly on her elbow, not out of affection, but out of social etiquette. With every conversation he held with investors and partners, Sophia felt more like a decorative accessory than a bride. "Your wife is charming, Leonardo," an older man with grey hair said, holding a glass of wine. "Thank you, Augusto," Leonardo replied without even glancing at Sophia. She smiled automatically, the smile she had practiced in the mirror countless times these past weeks. The smile of a trophy wife, the smile of someone who learned to hide her pain behind a socially acceptable mask. During dinner, they sat side by side at the main table. Leonardo talked with the people around them, discussing real estate markets, interest rates, new projects. Sophia ate the grilled salmon and asparagus risotto mechanically, tasting nothing. Every so often, she glanced toward her family's tables and saw her mother discreetly wiping tears with a napkin. There was no first dance. Leonardo had made it clear, through Patricia, that he preferred to skip sentimental traditions. No emotional speeches, no moment where the groom professes love for his bride in front of everyone. There was only champagne, business conversations, and the growing sense that Sophia had just sold not only her future, but her soul. When the reception finally ended, it was past 11 at night. Leonardo approached her for the first time in hours and said in his usual controlled voice, "The car is ready. We're leaving for Parity early in the morning. Tonight we'll stay in the hotel suite." Sophia simply nodded, too drained to speak. In the elevator up to the presidential suite, the silence was suffocating. Leonardo watched the floor numbers rise, his hands in his pockets, indifferent to the woman beside him. Sophia stared at her reflection in the mirrored doors and barely recognized herself. The suite was stunning. Panoramic views of Ipanema's beachfront, a sleek contemporary design in shades of grey and white, a king-size bed that seemed far too big for two strangers. But Sophia barely noticed the beauty. She was too busy trying not to fall apart. Leonardo loosened his tie and walked straight to the minibar, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. He didn't offer her anything. He just drank in silence, staring out at the city lights. "There are two connected suites," he finally said without turning around. "You may use the adjoining one if you prefer privacy." Something inside Sophia cracked. Not even on their wedding night would he pretend this was a real marriage. "All right," she whispered, her voice weaker than she intended. Leonardo finally turned to look at her. His dark eyes studied her for a moment, and Sophia couldn't decipher his expression. Disinterest, regret, or just that same cold calculation she had seen all along. "We leave at 6 tomorrow morning," he said. "The housekeeper has already prepared your luggage. Good night, Sophia." And with that, he walked into the main bedroom, closing the door behind him with a soft but definitive click. Sophia stood in the living room of the suite, still wearing a wedding dress that suddenly felt unbearably heavy. She stared at the white gold ring on her finger, an expensive piece chosen by Patricia that meant absolutely nothing. Slowly, she walked toward the window and rested her forehead against the cold glass. Down below, Ipanema's nightlife carried on as if nothing extraordinary had happened. People laughing, couples holding hands, life continuing as usual. But for Sophia, everything had changed. She was no longer Sophia Almeida, the girl who dreamed of becoming a teacher, who loved reading Clarice Lispector on Sunday afternoons, who believed in true love. Now she was Sophia Santoro, wife by contract, solution to a debt, a completed transaction. And as tears finally streamed down her face, soaking the fine French lace of her dress, she wondered if that cold man behind the closed door would ever see her as anything more than a fulfilled obligation. The night in Ipanema remained beautiful outside, but inside that luxurious suite, Sophia had never felt so alone. The trip to Parity began before sunrise. Sophia had barely slept, and when Leonardo knocked on her door at 5:45, right on time, she could still feel the weight of the wedding dress she'd taken off only a few hours earlier. "The car is waiting," was all he said. The black Mercedes glided down the Rio Santos highway as the sky slowly brightened. Sophia watched the dense Atlantic forest pass by, the ocean appearing between the curves, the mountains wrapped in morning mist. It was beautiful. It should have been romantic. But Leonardo worked the entire time beside her, laptop open, headset on, murmuring approvals in video conferences, not a single word directed at her in 4 hours of travel. The mansion appeared after they left Parity's historic centre, all glass and concrete, 3 stories overlooking the bay, an infinity pool blending into the sea. Breathtaking and absolutely cold. Donna Teresa, the grey-haired housekeeper with a spotless apron, opened the door with a genuine smile, but pity filled her eyes. And that pity made something twist inside Sophia's stomach. Even the housekeeper knew this wasn't a real marriage. "Donna Teresa manages the house," Leonardo explained, already climbing the stairs. "Anything you need, ask her. My office is on the 3rd floor. I need to work." And he vanished, leaving Sophia standing there with her suitcases at her feet and a growing emptiness in her chest. The bedroom was enormous, a king-size bed, glass doors opening to a balcony overlooking the sea, a bathroom with a soaking tub. Everything perfect, everything hollow. "Mr. Leonardo works a lot," Donna Teresa said gently while arranging Sophia's clothes in the closet. "He spends days shut inside the office, hardly comes down for meals." Breakfast was served on the ground floor veranda overlooking the garden and the ocean. Fresh bread, fruit, cheeses. But the table had only one place set. "Mr. Leonardo asked me to take his breakfast to the office," the housekeeper said, avoiding Sophia's gaze. So that was how it would be. She would eat alone while her husband worked on another floor, avoiding any contact. The following days turned into a routine of isolation. Sophia woke up early, but Leonardo was always awake before her. She could hear his footsteps upstairs, his voice in calls that began before 7. She ate breakfast alone. Donna Teresa always set the table only for her, with that same look of pity Sophia had begun to resent. The mornings were endless. Sophia walked along the private beach, sat on the deck trying to read, but the words never held her focus. She tried swimming in the infinity pool once, but the loneliness of swimming alone during her own honeymoon was too depressing. The afternoons were worse. The humid heat turned the glass mansion into an elegant greenhouse. Sophia hid in the bedroom, lying on the huge bed, watching the ceiling fan spin. Sometimes she heard footsteps upstairs, Leonardo pacing, but he never came down. Lunch was served at 12:30, always just for Sophia. Elaborate dishes, fish moqueca, shrimp risotto, as if the food could somehow fill the void inside the house. "You're not eating well, dear," the housekeeper said on the third day, worried. "I'm just not very hungry," Sophia replied, forcing a smile no one believed. Dinner was the only meal where Donna Teresa set 2 places, but Leonardo never appeared. The housekeeper took a plate up to his office at 8 and came back down with the previous one still full. "He doesn't eat," Sophia asked one evening. "He eats very little when he's focused on work. He's always been like that. Work consumes him." The nights were the worst. Sophia lay on the giant bed staring at the ceiling, the silence broken only by the waves outside and sometimes the creaking of a chair upstairs. Leonardo still awake, still working. On the 4th day, Sophia woke up determined. She couldn't go on like this. If Leonardo wouldn't come to her, she would go to him. She climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, her heartbeat uneven. The office door was slightly open. Leonardo sat behind a huge desk, 3 monitors in front of him, papers scattered everywhere. He wore only a black t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair messy. The first time she'd ever seen him like that. He looked more human, more reachable. She knocked softly. Leonardo looked up surprised. "Yes? I thought maybe you'd like to take a break. Donna Teresa made a cake. We could have some coffee together." He studied her for a long moment, then turned back to the monitors. "I'm in the middle of an important analysis. I need to finish it by the end of the day." "It's only 15 minutes, Sophia insisted, taking a step inside. "Can't you take a 15-minute break?" His jaw tightened. "Sophia, I have responsibilities, an empire to run. I can't stop because you're bored." The words hit like a slap. "Bored?" she repeated, her voice shaking. "We've been here for 4 days and you haven't said 10 words to me. We're on our honeymoon." "Honeymoon?" He let out a humorless laugh. "Sophia, let's be honest. This isn't a honeymoon. This is an arrangement. You knew that when you signed the contract." Something inside her broke. "You're right. I'm sorry for bothering you." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Sophia." She looked over her shoulder. Leonardo was standing now, hands on the desk. "I'm not trying to be cruel, but this is better. It keeps things simple." "Simple for who?" Sophia asked, tears burning her eyes. "Because for me, it's been lonely." Leonardo stayed silent, his jaw tense. Then he sat back down. "Close the door when you leave, please." Sophia walked down the stairs with trembling legs. She passed through the kitchen and headed straight to the beach. She walked to the rocks where the waves crashed loudly and finally let herself cry. She cried for the naivete of thinking this could work, for the loneliness consuming her, for the father she tried to save and the freedom she gave up. And she cried because deep down, some pathetic part of her still wanted Leonardo to come down those stairs and say it had been a mistake, but he didn't come. The following days were worse. Sophia stopped trying. Leonardo remained a ghost on the top floor, present but unreachable. On the 8th day at sunset, she heard the front door closing. She leaned over the balcony and saw Leonardo walking toward the beach, wearing nothing but swim trunks. It was the first time he'd left the office since they arrived. She watched him dive in and swim away from the shore with strong strokes, disappearing for nearly 40 minutes. When he returned, dripping seawater, shoulders slumped with exhaustion, he looked up and saw her. Their eyes met. There was something there, something beyond the usual coldness. But it vanished too quickly to understand. Leonardo looked away first and walked back into the house. That night, for the first time, Sophia heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened slowly. Leonardo stood at the doorway, illuminated by the corridor light. "Are you awake?" "I am now," Sophia said, sitting up, heart racing. He stood there for a moment, as if fighting with himself. Then he sighed. "I just wanted to check if you were all right, if you needed anything." "I'm fine," she lied. "Okay, good night then." "Leonardo," she called. He stopped. "Why did you marry me? Really? There were hundreds of other ways to solve this without a marriage." The silence stretched. Then he spoke, so softly she almost didn't hear it. "Because I thought maybe, if I had a wife, if I filled that empty space, I'd stop feeling so—" He trailed off, the sentence suspended in the air. "So what?" But Leonardo shook his head. "It doesn't matter. It was a mistake. Good night, Sophia." And when the door closed, Sophia knew he wouldn't return. She stayed awake for hours, thinking about those unfinished words, about the man who hid behind coldness, yet had, for a moment, let something slip through. Something vulnerable, something broken. And for the first time, Sophia wondered if maybe she wasn't the only prisoner in that glass mansion. The 9th day in Parity began with rain. A fine, steady drizzle that turned everything grey. The sea, the sky, even the glass mansion seemed to lose its shine. Sophia woke to the sound of raindrops hitting the windows and felt that the weather matched her soul perfectly. She went downstairs for breakfast, expecting to find the table set for just her, as always. But this time, something was different. Donna Teresa was in the kitchen with a worried expression, and there were 2 place settings laid out on the covered veranda. "Mr. Leonardo came down a few minutes ago," the housekeeper explained quietly, almost apologetically. "He said he'd have breakfast downstairs today." Sophia's heart skipped, a mix of hope and anxiety. Was it possible he was finally willing to have a normal conversation? Or was this just another cold, formal interaction? Leonardo appeared minutes later, wearing a white linen shirt and dark jeans. His hair was still damp from the shower, the stubble on his jaw making him look less corporate, more human. He poured himself some coffee in silence, sat at the table, and opened the newspaper Donna Teresa had left there. Sophia stared at him for a moment, stunned. Was he really going to sit there and have breakfast with her while reading the paper without saying a single word? "Good morning," she said, her voice edged with a hint of irony she didn't bother to hide. "Good morning," Leonardo replied without lifting his eyes from the paper. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sophia stirred her coffee with a spoon, the clink against the porcelain sounding unbearably loud in that forced quiet. She looked out at the grey sea, at the rain that showed no sign of stopping, and felt something boiling inside her. No, she couldn't keep doing this. "Do you plan to spend the next 2 years like this?" she asked abruptly. Leonardo slowly lowered the newspaper, his dark eyes settling on her with a neutral expression. Like this, how? Like this, avoiding me, pretending I don't exist, treating this marriage like just another one of your business contracts. The words came faster now, fueled by days of pent-up frustration. I understand this isn't a love marriage, Leonardo. I know what I signed. But it doesn't have to be silent torture. Torture? He repeated the word as if tasting it. I'm giving you a comfortable life, financial security, a spectacular house. Your family is free of debt. I don't see the torture. The torture is the loneliness, Sophia shot back, her voice rising before she could control it. It's waking up every day in an empty house, eating alone, spending hours without hearing another human voice besides the housekeeper's. It's feeling invisible in what's supposed to be my own home. Leonardo set the paper aside, his jaw tight. I was very clear from the beginning that I wasn't looking for an emotional relationship. You accepted the terms. I accepted a marriage of convenience, not solitary confinement. Sophia stood, her hands trembling. Do you have any idea how cruel this is? Bringing me here, locking me in this beautiful house, and then completely ignoring me. No one is locking you in, Leonardo countered, rising as well. His voice remained controlled, but there was a growing tension in it. You're free to come and go as you please. Go where, Leonardo? I don't know anyone here. My whole life is in Rio. My friends, my college, everything. And I left all of that behind to come here and be what exactly? Your ghost wife. You left all of that to save your father from bankruptcy, he corrected, something sharp cutting through his tone now. Don't paint me as the villain when you made a conscious choice. The words hit her like a slap. Sophia felt tears burn behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall in front of him. Not again. You're right, she said, her voice coming out calmer than she felt. I made a choice, and I'll live with it. But don't ask me to pretend this is fine. Don't ask me to accept this coldness as if it were normal. She turned to leave, but Leonardo spoke again, his voice lower this time. Sophia, wait. She stopped, but didn't turn around. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, and there was something different in his voice now, something vulnerable she had never heard before. I don't know how to be with someone. It's been a long time since. The sentence trailed off. Sophia finally turned to face him. Leonardo stood in the middle of the veranda, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched. For the first time, he didn't look like an untouchable magnate. He just looked like a tired, confused man. Since when? Sophia asked gently. Leonardo looked away out at the grey sea. My parents died when I was 14. Car accident on the Rio Santos highway. It was raining, like today. He paused, his voice tightening. I was raised by my uncle Claudio. He was strict. He saw emotions as weakness. Taught me that crying was for the weak, that trusting people was a mistake, that the only reliable things in this world were numbers and contracts. Sophia felt her chest tighten. She took a step toward him, then stopped, unsure if she should get closer. At 18, I built my first company with my inheritance. By 25, I already had an empire, and at 30... He stopped, his jaw clenching. At 30, I learned the hard way that my uncle was right, that trusting someone really is a mistake. What happened? Sophia asked softly. But Leonardo only shook his head. It doesn't matter. The point is, I don't know how to be different. I don't know how to lower these defenses without feeling like I'm going to break all over again. The silence that followed was unlike the others. It wasn't awkward or hostile. It was heavy with something deeper, the weight of unspoken pain between two people trapped in a situation neither of them truly wanted. I'm not asking you to fall in love with me, Sophia said at last, her voice soft. I'm just asking you to see me, to talk to me, for us to at least try to make this bearable. Because the way it is now, Leonardo, we're both suffering. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something shift in those dark eyes. Pain, maybe, or fear, or both. "I'll try," he said finally. "I don't know if I'll manage, but I'll try." It wasn't much, but it was more than she'd had in the last 9 days. The rain fell all day. Sophia spent the afternoon reading on the veranda while Leonardo went back to his office, but something had changed. The air in the house felt lighter, as if a window had been opened and fresh air had finally come in. When dinner was served, Leonardo came downstairs. He didn't say much, but he sat at the table and ate with her. Small comments about the food, the rain, nothing important, but it was something. Sophia went to bed that night feeling just a little less alone. It was around midnight when she heard noises coming from the kitchen, footsteps, the clatter of pans, the fridge opening and closing. Curious and a bit uneasy, Sophia got out of bed, slipped on a robe over her nightgown, and went downstairs. The scene she found in the kitchen felt surreal. Leonardo stood at the stove, wearing only pajama pants, bare-chested, cracking eggs into a bowl. Grated cheese was spread out on the counter, along with chopped tomatoes and diced ham. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, without turning around, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to be making omelettes at midnight. "I heard noise," Sophia said, stepping cautiously into the kitchen. "What are you doing?" "Omelettes. When I can't sleep, I cook." He finally looked at her, and there was something lighter in his expression. "Are you hungry?" She actually wasn't, but answered, "I am." Leonardo nodded toward the stool by the counter. "Sit. It'll be ready in 5 minutes." Sophia sat and watched him move. There was an unexpected ease in the way he worked in the kitchen, confident, efficient, like this was something he did often. It was strange, seeing the man who spent his days buried in numbers, now handling ingredients with the same precision. "Do you cook well?" she asked. "According to Donna Teresa, yes. My uncle used to say men shouldn't cook, that it was women's work. So I taught myself when I was 16, just to spite him." A small, almost invisible smile tugged at his lips. "It was one of the few acts of rebellion I allowed myself." "And you still cook?" "When I can't sleep, or when I'm stressed. It's therapeutic, I guess. Something about creating something with my hands, something that doesn't involve spreadsheets or contracts." Sophia smiled, surprised by the confession. "How long have you not been sleeping well?" Leonardo poured the egg mixture into the pan, the sizzle briefly filling the silence. "Years. Since—" He stopped, stirring the eggs with a spatula. "Since I stopped trusting anyone enough to relax." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." The omelette was ready quickly. Leonardo split it between 2 plates, added the tomatoes and cheese on top, and set one in front of her. Then he sat beside her at the counter, something he had never done before. So close, with no dinner table acting as a barrier between them. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The omelette was perfect, creamy, perfectly seasoned, the kind of comforting food that tastes better in the middle of the night. "This is delicious," Sophia said honestly. "Thank you." Leonardo took a sip of water. "My mother used to make omelettes for me when I had nightmares. After she died, no one did it anymore, so I learned to make them myself." Sophia felt her heart squeeze. "How old were you when she died?" 14. She and my father were coming back from Parity, actually. That's why I bought this house. I wanted to, I don't know, take back something that was stolen from me on that road." "And did it work?" Leonardo stared at his plate, thoughtful. "No. You can't get back what you lost. You just learned to live with the hole it left." Sophia didn't know what to say to that, so she simply reached across the counter and laid her hand over his. Leonardo looked at her hand, surprised, but didn't pull away. They stayed like that for a long moment, the kitchen silent except for the distant sound of rain. "Why are you being kind to me?" he asked suddenly, his voice low. I've been awful to you. Because I think you're trying, Sophia answered. And because everyone deserves kindness, Leonardo, especially people who've forgotten how to ask for it. He stayed quiet, his eyes fixed on her hand resting over his. Then, slowly, he turned his palm upward and intertwined his fingers with hers. I'll try to be better, he said. I can't promise I'll succeed, but I'll try. That's all I'm asking. Undel. They stayed there until they finished eating, their fingers still laced together on the counter, and for the first time since they'd gotten married, Sophia felt something other than emptiness. It wasn't happiness exactly, but it was hope. And maybe in that moment, hope was enough. The days that followed brought a subtle but noticeable change. Leonardo didn't suddenly turn into a devoted husband, but he started coming downstairs for meals. Sometimes he stayed quiet, lost in thoughts Sophia didn't dare interrupt. Other times he asked simple questions about the book she was reading, about her family, about small things that together began to form a fragile bridge between two strangers. Sophia caught herself looking forward to those moments. Breakfast at 8, when Leonardo came down with his hair still damp from the shower. Dinner at 7:30, when he shut his laptop and walked down the stairs, as if he'd made a promise to himself to at least try. They were small gestures, but they were something. The morning was clear when the intercom at the gate rang. Sophia was on the veranda reading Clarice Lispector when she heard Donna Teresa answer. Muffled voices, and then the sound of high heels on the wooden floor. "Where is Leonardo?" A firm, authoritative female voice echoed through the hall. Sophia stood, her heart speeding up without knowing exactly why. She walked to the living room and stopped at the doorway. The woman standing there was stunning. Perfectly styled blonde hair falling in waves over her shoulders, a scarlet dress hugging every curve, sky-high heels that made her look even more imposing. Designer sunglasses, a luxury handbag, expensive perfume Sophia could smell from where she stood. She looked about 35 maybe, and there was something predatory in the way she moved through the space, as if she owned it. "And who are you?" the woman asked when she saw Sophia taking off her sunglasses to reveal blue eyes that scanned her from head to toe with thinly veiled disdain. "I'm Sophia, Leonardo's wife." The word still felt strange in her mouth. The woman let out a short, humorless laugh. "Ah, yes. The wife. I've heard about you. Larissa Mendez, Leonardo's partner in 3 developments in Leblon." She extended her hand, nails perfectly polished in red. The handshake was firm, almost aggressive. "Leonardo didn't tell me we were expecting visitors," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Leonardo doesn't tell anyone anything. I'm sure you've noticed by now." Larissa walked over to the window with the ease of someone who knew the house well. "He's in his office." "He is." "Of course he is. He always is." Larissa turned, leaning against the windowsill, her eyes studying Sophia with renewed interest. "So you're the brave one who agreed to marry him. I have to say you're younger than I expected. And more naive, perhaps." Sophia felt her face heat. "Excuse me?" "Don't take it personally, dear. I just wonder if you really know what you've gotten yourself into." Larissa pulled a silver cigarette case from her bag and lit a cigarette, despite being inside the house. "Leonardo Santoro is not an easy man. Actually, he's impossible, but I imagine you've already discovered that. I don't think it's appropriate to discuss my marriage with a stranger," Larissa cut in, smiling. "But we're not strangers, Sophia. I've known Leonardo for almost 10 years. We've worked together, had dinner together. I know his secrets." She paused, taking a long drag. "Or at least, I did, before you showed up." There was something poisonous in her tone, something that made Sophia want to run upstairs and get Leonardo. But she held her ground. "If you have business with my husband, I suggest you go to his office. I'm not the right person for this conversation." "Oh, but I didn't come here to talk business." Larissa took a few steps closer, her eyes gleaming with something dangerous. "I came because I thought it was only fair to warn you. Woman to woman, you know how it is." "Warn me about what?" Larissa shrugged, crushing the cigarette out in a nearby vase with blatant disregard. "About Mariana, of course. You do know about Mariana, don't you?" The name hung in the air like a curse. Sophia slowly shook her head. "No. How interesting. So Leonardo didn't tell you about his ex-wife?" Larissa laughed again, that same mirthless sound. "Mariana Portela. Gorgeous, sophisticated, from a traditional family in Jardim Botanico. They were married for 5 years. Leonardo was completely in love with her. Obsessed even, gave her everything she wanted, jewelry, trips, a penthouse on Vieira Soto. He would have given his life for her." Sophia felt something cold slide down her spine. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth. Mariana cheated on him. For 3 years, she had an affair with his best friend, Felipe Navarro. 3 years, Sophia. And Leonardo had no idea. When he finally found out, it was devastating to watch. The man literally fell apart." "How did he find out?" Sophia asked, her voice weaker than she meant it to be. "Felipe confessed. Christian guilt, I suppose. Said he couldn't stand the lie anymore. Leonardo kicked them both out of his life that same day. Sold the penthouse, burned everything that reminded him of Mariana, locked her things in a room in this house, and never spoke of it again." Larissa stepped closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And ever since, Leonardo has been completely closed off. He doesn't get involved with anyone, doesn't trust anyone, until you showed up. So why do you think you need to tell me all this?" "Because there's still a locked room in this house, Sophia. On the 2nd floor at the end of the hall, Leonardo keeps the key on him at all times. Have you ever wondered what's inside?" Her blue eyes sparkled with malice. "It's her things. Photos, clothes, gifts. He says it's the past, but a man who locks the past in a room instead of getting rid of it, well, that man hasn't gotten over anything." Sophia felt nausea rise in her throat. "You need to leave." "I'm going, dear. I just came to drop off some documents for Leonardo to sign." Larissa grabbed her bag and walked toward the stairs. "Oh, and Sophia, a little friendly advice. Don't mention Mariana's name around him. Leonardo doesn't react well. Last time someone brought her up, he smashed a 30,000 real crystal vase with his bare hands. And with that, Larissa went upstairs, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and poison. The silence that followed felt heavy as stone. Sophia stood in the middle of the living room, heart pounding, her mind spinning. A locked room. An ex-wife named Mariana. 3 years of betrayal. A wound so deep he'd shut himself off from the world. Suddenly, everything made sense. The coldness, the distance, the inability to trust. Leonardo wasn't just being cruel, he was protecting what was left of himself. Sophia slowly climbed to the 2nd floor. She passed her own bedroom, the guest room that had never been used, and then she saw it. At the end of the hallway, a dark wooden door, different from all the others. No visible handle, just an old, solid lock. She stepped closer, her heart beating faster. She laid her hand against the cold wood and closed her eyes. She could almost feel the pain locked away in there, the untold story, the ghosts Leonardo carried. "What are you doing?" Sophia spun around. Leonardo stood at the top of the stairs, Larissa at his side with a satisfied smile on her lips. His face was pale, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscles twitching. "I was just... step away from that door." His voice came out low and dangerous, and Sophia had never seen him like that. His dark eyes were stormy, his hands balled into fists. "Leonardo, I said, step away!" His shout echoed through the house, making Sophia flinch and instinctively back away. Larissa walked down the stairs unbothered. that smug smile still in place. "I think I'll be going now. The documents are on your desk, Leonardo. See you later, Sophia." And she left, trailing expensive perfume and venom behind her. The silence that followed was suffocating. Leonardo walked slowly down the stairs, his eyes locked on Sophia. "Who told you about that room?" "Larissa mentioned—" "Of course she did. That viper never misses a chance." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to keep control. "What else did she tell you?" Sophia hesitated, then chose honesty. "She told me about Mariana, about what she did to you." The reaction was immediate. Leonardo turned and punched the wall, the sound of impact making Sophia jump. When he pulled his hand back, there was a dent in the wall and blood on his knuckles. "Never," he said, his voice shaking with barely contained rage. "Never say that name in this house. Never. Do you understand?" "Leonardo, your hand—" "I don't care about my hand." His breathing was ragged now, his chest rising and falling quickly. "You have no right to dig around in my past, no right to ask questions about things that aren't your concern. But I'm your wife." "You're my wife on paper," Leonardo shouted, each word cutting deep. "That doesn't give you the right to rummage through my life, to demand answers about things I buried years ago. That room is locked for a reason. That name isn't spoken for a reason. And if you can't respect that, then maybe we made a mistake." Tears streamed down Sophia's face, but her voice remained steady. "I didn't go looking for anything. Larissa came here and threw all of it in my face. And do you know why? Because she wants to see you suffer. Because she likes knowing you're still trapped in that pain." "I'm not trapped in anything," Leonardo said, but his voice faltered. "Yes, you are. You locked your past in a room, but you carry the key with you. You shut yourself off from the entire world because one person hurt you. And now you're hurting me because you're afraid I'll do the same." Leonardo fell silent, his breathing still heavy, his eyes bright with something between fury and anguish. "I will never hurt you the way she did," Sophia said quietly. "But you have to let me in, Leonardo, even if it's just a little." "I can't," he replied, and for the first time his voice was broken. "I can't, because if I let you in and you destroy me like she did, I won't survive it again. I barely survived the first time." And with that, he walked past her, climbed the stairs, passed the locked room without so much as a glance, and disappeared into his office on the 3rd floor. Sophia stood there in the hallway, listening to the office door slam shut, and felt as though she were watching a man drown without being able to reach out and save him. Because Leonardo wasn't just building walls, he was burying himself alive behind them. And Sophia had no idea if she would be able to reach him before it was too late. 3 weeks had passed since the day Larissa had exploded like a grenade in the middle of the fragile piece Sophia and Leonardo were trying to build. 3 weeks of glacial silence, lonely meals, closed doors. It was as if they had gone back to the beginning, only worse, because now Sophia knew there was something beyond the coldness. There was pain. There was a broken man trying to hold himself together. Leonardo went back to locking himself in the office. Donna Teresa went back to setting only one place at the table. And Sophia went back to wandering through the mansion like a ghost. Frustration turned into anger, then into sadness, and finally into resignation. Sophia called her mother every day, making up stories about how wonderful the honeymoon was, hating every lie. It was on a stormy night that everything changed. Summer had arrived with violent storms. Sophia was lying in bed, listening to the wind howl and the thunder tear across the sky. The rain pounded so hard it felt like it was attacking the house. It was 2:20 in the morning when she heard hesitant footsteps in the hallway. Sophia opened the door cautiously. Leonardo was there, soaked, completely drenched, as if he had been standing out in the rain for hours, his hair dripping, his t-shirt clinging to his body, bare feet leaving wet prints on the floor. He stood in front of the locked room, his forehead resting against the door, shoulders trembling. "Leonardo?" Sophia called softly. He didn't answer. He just stayed there like a shattered statue. "Leonardo, you're soaked. You need to change." "I can't," he said, his voice barely audible. "Can't what?" "Open this damn door." He slapped his palm against the wood. "It's been 5 years. 5 years of shutting everything in here. 5 years telling myself that if I didn't look, didn't think, didn't feel, eventually it would stop hurting. But it doesn't. It never stops." Sophia stepped closer. "Then open it. Open it and get rid of everything." Leonardo turned to face her. His eyes were red. She couldn't tell where the rain ended and the tears began. "I can't. Because if I open it, I'll have to admit I wasted 5 years of my life hating someone who isn't worth another second. I'll have to admit I became this because of her, that I let her destroy me even after she was gone." "You're not destroyed," Sophia said gently. "I'm not?" Leonardo gave a bitter laugh. "Sophia, look at me. I married you, and I can't even be in the same room with you because I'm so afraid of trusting someone that I'd rather be alone. What kind of person does that? A person who's been hurt. I was pathetic. I gave that woman 5 years of my life, cancelled important meetings. I was thinking about having children with her, and the whole time for 3 years she was with Felipe, in my bed, laughing at me." Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. "Leonardo, do you know what hurts the most? It's not the betrayal, it's the humiliation. Knowing everyone knew, Larissa knew, the staff knew, half of Rio knew that Leonardo Santoro was being played for a fool, and I was the last one to find out. That doesn't make you a fool. It makes you someone who trusted, someone who loved. And look where that got me," Leonardo shouted, then collapsed. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, head in his hands, body shaking. "I turned into this cold monster who can't feel anything without being terrified he'll shatter again." Sophia knelt beside him and pulled him into her arms. Leonardo resisted for half a second, then crumbled against her. His arms wrapped around her with desperate strength, his face buried in her shoulder, his body racked with sobs he'd held in for 5 years. She just held him, stroking his wet hair, letting the storm outside drown out the sound of his pain. Eventually the sobs began to fade. Leonardo lifted his head and looked at her with raw, vulnerable eyes. "I'm in love with you," he said, the words coming out like a confession torn out of him. "And I'm terrified because I don't know what to do with it." Sophia felt her heart stop. "What?" "I've spent 3 weeks trying not to feel this, locking myself in that office, forcing myself to focus on work, telling myself it would go away." He cupped her face in his hands. "But it doesn't. Every time I hear your voice, every time you walk up those stairs, just to see me, every time you look at me like I'm not a lost cause, I fall harder. Leonardo, I know I don't have the right. I know I've treated you horribly, but I can't stop. And the more I try to avoid you, the more I want to be near you. And it terrifies me because if I let you in and you hurt me, Sophia, I won't survive it. I'm not going to hurt you. You can't promise that." "No, I can't. Just like you can't promise you'll never hurt me. But we can try. We can try to be honest, try to build something real out of this mess." Leonardo studied her face, searching for any trace of a lie. He found only sincerity. "I don't know how to do that." "Neither do I, but we'll learn together." He kissed her then. It was nothing like the mechanical kiss at the altar. It was desperate, hungry, soaked with 5 years of loneliness. His fingers tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. Sophia kissed him back with the same intensity, pouring all her frustration and all her hope into it. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "Come with me," Leonardo said, standing and offering his hand. Sophia took it. He led her down the hallway and stopped in front of the locked door. With trembling fingers, he pulled a key from his pocket. "I need to do this. I need to get rid of this once and for all. And I need you here when I do." Sophia squeezed his hand. "I'm here." Leonardo turned the key. The door swung open to reveal a room frozen in darkness. He flicked on the light. Boxes stacked against the walls, clothes hanging in the closet, framed photos turned face down. 5 years of a life locked away. He stepped inside slowly, picked up a photo frame and turned it over. A beautiful woman with chestnut hair smiled back at them. Mariana. She was beautiful, Sophia said softly. She was, and empty. But I was so in love I didn't see it. Leonardo set the picture down, face down on the shelf. "Tomorrow I'm calling a donation service. Everything here goes. And then I'm turning this room into something else. An office for you, maybe. Anything besides a shrine to my own stupidity." It wasn't stupidity to love someone. It was stupidity to let that love define me even after it died. Leonardo turned to her and took both her hands. "But that ends today. Today I choose to move on. I choose to try again. I choose you, Sophia. If you still want me," Sophia smiled through her tears, "I want you, the imperfect broken man you are." Leonardo pulled her into another kiss, gentler this time, tender, a promise. They left the room together, and Leonardo locked the door one last time. Tomorrow he would open it again, but only to empty it, to finally let go. That night, for the first time, Leonardo didn't sleep alone. He took Sophia to his room and held her while the storm raged outside. There was no rush, just two bodies finding comfort in each other. When the sun rose over Paraty, lighting the bay after the storm, Sophia woke in Leonardo's arms and knew something had changed. They weren't healed. There was still so much to rebuild. But for the first time, they were trying together. And maybe that was the real beginning of everything. 2 months had passed since that stormy night that changed everything. 2 months in which Sophia and Leonardo finally began building something that felt real. The glass mansion in Paraty, once an elegant prison, slowly became a home. Leonardo kept his promise. The morning after the storm, a donation company came and took everything from the locked room. Clothes, photos, jewelry, everything that had belonged to Mariana disappeared as if it had never existed. And then, with Sophia's help, he transformed the space. Soft blue walls, a light wooden desk near the window, bookshelves, hanging plants. A place for Sophia to resume her pedagogy studies, a room that belonged entirely to her. "Here you can study, write, dream," Leonardo had said when he finished the surprise. "This room won't hold ghosts anymore. It'll hold the future." Sophia cried, hugged him tightly, and for the first time since they'd married, she felt that maybe, just maybe, this could work. Their days took on new color. Leonardo began working fewer hours, coming downstairs for lunch, taking walks with her on the beach at dusk. They talked about everything and nothing. About his childhood, about her dream of becoming a teacher, about bad movies and good books. Small things that wove intimacy, stitch by stitch. The nights were even better. Leonardo was no longer the cold man who flinched from touch. He sought her out, held her hand during dinner, pulled her into slow dances in the living room when a song he liked played on the radio. And when they went to bed, there was tenderness. There was vulnerability. There was something beginning to resemble real love. It was on a September morning that Sophia woke with nausea. She ran to the bathroom, vomiting the previous night's dinner. She assumed it was something she ate, maybe Donna Teresa's shrimp moqueca. But the nausea came back the next day, and the next, and for an entire week, Sophia woke feeling sick, barely able to drink her morning coffee. "You need to see a doctor," Leonardo said, worried, holding her hair back as she vomited for the 3rd time that morning. "It's probably just a bug," Sophia said, rinsing her mouth. But Donna Teresa, with the wisdom of someone who had seen a lot in life, gave Sophia a knowing smile. "What kind of bug, dear?" Sophia froze. Her heart began to race. She did the math in her head. Her cycle was late, 3 weeks late. How had she not noticed? "I need to buy a test," she whispered, her voice trembling. Leonardo drove her to the nearest pharmacy in Parity. He waited in the car while she bought 3 different pregnancy tests, her hands shaking as she paid. On the way back, the silence was thick with unspoken fear and hope. "And if it's positive?" Leonardo asked, eyes fixed on the road. "And if it is?" Sophia replied. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, voice breaking, "It would be the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me." Sophia took all 3 tests in the bathroom of their suite, Leonardo pacing outside the door like a caged animal. 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. When she opened the door, she held all 3 tests in her hand, all positive. "I'm pregnant," she said, and then she burst into tears. Leonardo stood frozen for a second, processing. Then a huge, genuine smile lit his face in a way Sophia had never seen. He lifted her off the ground, spinning her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "We're having a baby," he repeated, as if he needed to hear it aloud to believe it. "Sophia, we're having a baby." That night, lying in bed, Leonardo placed his hand reverently over her still flat stomach. "Hi," he whispered. "I'm your dad, and I promise I'll be better than mine was. I promise you'll grow up knowing you're loved, that you'll never feel alone." Sophia stroked his hair, her heart overflowing. "You're going to be an amazing father." "I hope so. I really do." The months that followed were the happiest of Sophia's life. Leonardo became a fiercely protective and loving husband. He attended every doctor's appointment, held her hand during ultrasounds, cried the first time he heard the heartbeat. "It's so fast," he said, mesmerized by the tiny flicker on the screen. "How can something so small already have a beating heart?" He read pregnancy books, took notes on fetal development, prepared vitamin drinks and fresh juices for her every morning. He became obsessed with nutrition, making sure she ate well and rested properly. "Leonardo, I'm pregnant, not sick," she laughed when he checked on her for the 10th time in a day. "I know, I just want everything to be perfect." They found out it was a boy. Leonardo wanted to name him Mateus. "Mateus Leonardo Santoro," he said, testing the name. "What do you think?" "I think it's perfect." Their days found a rhythm. Breakfast together at 7, Leonardo making scrambled eggs just the way she liked. Sunset walks on the beach, Leonardo holding her hand and talking to the growing belly. And every night before bed, he read aloud, Machado de Assis, José de Alencar, Clarice Lispector. "Our son will be born cultured," he joked, kissing her belly. The mansion filled with life. They painted the nursery a soft yellow, assembled the crib together, debated decorations. Sophia had never seen Leonardo so light, so joyful, so present. "You're different," she said one night, as they lay in bed after he finished reading a Machado story. "Different how?" "More you. Or maybe it's the version of you that was always there, just hidden." Leonardo turned to face her, brushing her cheek with his fingers. "You brought me back. You and this little miracle here." He placed his hand on her belly, feeling a gentle kick. "I spent 5 years dead inside, Sophia, functioning but not living. Then you came into my life and it's like someone turned the lights back on." "I love you," Sophia said, the first time she'd spoken the words. Leonardo closed his eyes, as if savoring the moment. "I love you. More than I ever thought I could love anyone again." They made love that night with a tenderness that made Sophia's heart ache from how full it felt. And when Leonardo whispered, "Can I keep going?" he wasn't asking about the physical act. He was asking about all of it, letting her all the way in, building a life together, allowing himself to be happy again. "Yes," Sophia said through tears. "Always yes." The months slipped by in fragile, precious happiness. At 4 months, Sophia's belly was round and firm. At 5, Mateus kicked strongly, especially when he heard Leonardo's voice. Leonardo became obsessed, talking to her belly for hours, singing little songs he made up. "You're going to be so loved, little one," he whispered. "So loved you won't even know what to do with all of it." But happiness, Sophia was about to learn, can be as fragile as glass. And some storms don't announce themselves. They simply arrive and shatter everything. The happiness lasted exactly 4.5 months. That was when Mariana Portela returned. Sophia was 5 months pregnant, her belly round and beginning to make movements a little harder, but she still felt well. It was a sunny Tuesday in January when the intercom rang. Donna Teresa answered, and Sophia heard the housekeeper's voice shift, first to surprise, then to worry. "Mrs. Sophia, there's a woman here saying she needs to speak with Mr. Leonardo. She says it's urgent." Sophia walked to the living room, and the sight before her made her blood turn to ice. Mariana Portela was even more beautiful in person than in her photos. Tall, elegant, her chestnut hair cascading in perfect waves over her shoulders, wearing a white linen dress that looked straight out of a fashion magazine. Chanel sunglasses, a Hermes bag, and an air of superiority that filled the room. "You must be the new wife," Mariana said, removing her sunglasses to reveal brown eyes that scanned Sophia from head to toe. Her gaze stopped at Sophia's belly. And pregnant. How convenient. Who are you?" Sophia asked, though she already knew. "Mariana Portela, or rather Mariana Santoro. Technically, I'm still his wife." Sophia felt the world tilt. "What? Oh, he didn't tell you?" Mariana smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "The divorce was never finalized. There was an irregularity in the documents, something about signatures that were never properly validated. My lawyer discovered it 2 weeks ago." "That's a lie," Sophia said, but her voice came out weak. "I have the documents right here, darling." Mariana pulled a folder from her expensive bag and placed it on the coffee table. All the legal paperwork proving that Leonardo Santoro and Mariana Portela's marriage was never officially dissolved. Which means his marriage to you, well, is invalid. Sophia's legs nearly gave out. She steadied herself on the sofa. "Leonardo!" Leonardo rushed down the stairs, and when he saw Mariana standing in the living room, his face turned as white as Sophia had ever seen it. "What are you doing here?" "I came to bring good news, darling." Mariana gestured to the documents. "We're still married. You're a bigamist. How do you think your investors will react when they find out? And the media? Real estate tycoon commits bigamy and gets his mistress pregnant." "Get out of my house," Leonardo said, his voice low and dangerous. "Our house, technically. I'm still your legal wife." Mariana strolled around the room as if she owned it. "But I didn't come here to cause problems, Leonardo. I came to propose a deal." "What kind of deal?" Leonardo asked, jaw clenched tight. "You pay me what I deserve for our marriage, let's say 50 million reis, and I'll sign the divorce properly. Simple." "You're extorting me." "I'm offering you an elegant solution. 50 million is cheap compared to what you'd lose in a public scandal." Mariana glanced at Sophia with disdain. "And your little pregnant wife wouldn't have to suffer the humiliation of discovering her marriage is fake." Sophia felt nausea rise, and not from morning sickness. "Leave now, or I'll call the police," Leonardo said. "Call them. It'll be interesting to explain your bigamy." Mariana grabbed her bag. "You have 1 week to think about it, Leonardo. After that, my lawyer files a lawsuit, and everything goes public. Think carefully. Do you really want your child born in the middle of a scandal?" And with that, she left, leaving the documents on the table and a trail of expensive perfume and poison behind her. Sophia sank onto the sofa, hands trembling. Leonardo grabbed the documents and read them, his face darkening by the second. "Is it true?" Sophia asked, her voice breaking. "I don't know. I need to show this to my lawyer." Leonardo ran a hand through his hair, clearly panicked. "Sophia, I swear I thought the divorce was finalized. I signed everything, followed every procedure. But what if it wasn't? What if our marriage is invalid? What if Mateus— No. Leonardo cut her off, kneeling in front of her, taking her hands. No matter what the papers say, no matter what the documents say, you are my wife. Mateus is my son. Nothing Mariana does will change that. But things were about to get much worse. 3 days later, Leonardo's lawyer confirmed the truth. There was an irregularity. A registry office employee had been bribed by Mariana years earlier to process the paperwork incompletely. The divorce had never been officially recorded. It can be corrected, the lawyer explained, but it will take time, months maybe. That was when Mariana launched her second bomb. Sophia was at a prenatal appointment with Leonardo when her phone exploded with notifications. Texts from unknown numbers, emails, social media alerts. When she checked, she felt the world collapse. Photos, dozens of photos of her with Tiago, her college ex-boyfriend. Pictures that looked recent. Sophia laughing, Tiago with his arm around her, the two entering a hotel, leaving a restaurant. The photos were plastered across gossip sites with sensational headlines. Tycoon's wife cheats with ex while pregnant. Paternity in question. Is Leonardo Santoro really the father? That's a lie, Sophia cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. These photos are old. I haven't seen Tiago in over a year. Leonardo looked at the photos on her phone, and Sophia saw something terrible happen. She saw doubt flicker in his eyes. It lasted less than a second, a tiny, involuntary flash, but it was there. You believe this? She asked, her voice shattering. Leonardo, do you think I would cheat on you? No, I don't think so. But his voice faltered, his damned voice faltered. You hesitated. Sophia stood, heart ripping apart. You hesitated, Leonardo. After everything, you still doubt me. Sophia, it's not that. It's just that these photos are fake, manipulated. Tiago has lived in São Paulo for a year. I can prove it. She was sobbing now, breath coming fast. But the fact that you doubted me, even for a second— I'm not doubting you, Leonardo insisted. But even he sounded unconvinced. The doctor entered the room then, alarmed by the shouting. You both need to calm down. Stress is not good for the baby. But Sophia was already walking out. She grabbed her bag and left the clinic, Leonardo rushing after her. Sophia, wait, let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. She turned, tears streaming. You're exactly what Mariana said. You never got over what she did, and now you're projecting her betrayal onto me? That's not true, isn't it? Then why did you doubt? Why, when you saw those obviously fake photos, was your first reaction to question me? Sophia placed her hands over her belly, instinctively protecting the baby. I spent months showing you that you could trust me, and in a single second Mariana destroyed everything. Sophia, please. I'm going to my parents' house, she said, calling a taxi. Don't follow me. I need time. And Mateus? Mateus is your son. That has never been in question, but I can't stay with someone who doesn't trust me. I can't live being compared to her. The taxi pulled up. When you decide who you want to be, the man who loved me this morning or the man destroyed by Mariana, you know where to find me. Sophia got into the taxi and didn't look back, even as she heard Leonardo calling her name. As the car drove away, she placed a hand on her belly and whispered, I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry for all of this. Mateus kicked, as if telling her he understood, but the storm was only beginning. Sophia moved back into her parents' home in Lapa. The small two-bedroom house where she'd grown up felt tiny compared to the glass mansion in Paraty, but it was warm, safe, familiar. Her mother, Carmen, didn't ask questions. She simply hugged her daughter and made chamomile tea, just as she used to when Sophia was a little girl having nightmares. He's going to call, Carmen said gently, running her fingers through Sophia's hair. Whatever happened, the two of you will figure it out. But Sophia shook her head. I don't know if we can, Mom. He doubted me. After everything, he still doubted me. Leonardo called. Dozens of times he sent messages, flowers, handwritten letters. Sophia ignored it all. She blocked his number, refused the deliveries. She needed space to breathe, to think, to decide whether she could ever forgive the single moment of hesitation that had shattered everything. Her belly kept growing. At 6 months, Mateus moved constantly. On the nights she couldn't sleep, Sophia would whisper to him, stroking her belly. "Your father is an idiot," she murmured, "but he loves you. I know he does." It was her father, Antonio, who finally intervened. 2 weeks after she'd returned home, he knocked on her bedroom door. "Leonardo is downstairs. He's asking for 5 minutes, just 5. "I don't want to see him." "I'm not forcing you into anything, but this man is destroyed. He's lost 5 kilos. He has dark circles down to his chin, and he's begging just to see you from a distance." Antonio paused. "And he's the father of my grandson. At least hear what he has to say." Sophia walked downstairs slowly, hands protectively over her belly. Leonardo stood in the living room wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. His eyes were red, his hair messy, his beard untrimmed. He looked like a man on the edge of collapse. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. "Sophia." "5 minutes," she said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Leonardo drew a deep breath. "I hired the best private investigators in Rio, forensic specialists in digital manipulation, and I found the truth." He pulled a folder from his backpack. The photos were faked by a photographer named Vitor Rice. Mariana paid him 50,000 reais to create the images using old pictures of you and Tiago and inserting you both into new backgrounds. I have all the proof, bank receipts, his signed confession, forensic analysis showing the digital alterations. Sophia took the folder with shaking hands. Everything was there. The confession, the technical breakdown, even screenshots of messages between Vitor and Mariana planning the setup. "And there's more," Leonardo continued, his voice cracking. "The registry office employee who processed our divorce fraudulently, Marcelo Ferreira. Mariana had been bribing him for 5 years to keep the divorce stuck in legal limbo, waiting for the right moment to use it against me. He confessed when confronted with the evidence. And Felipe?" Sophia asked softly. Leonardo closed his eyes, as if the next part physically hurt. "Felipe finally told the truth. It wasn't a 3-year affair. It was one night, one drunken mistake after a party. He felt so guilty he confessed to me the next day. But Mariana blackmailed him, said she'd tell his wife, destroy his career, unless he lied and said it had gone on for years. He lied out of fear. And I believed it." Tears streamed down Sophia's face. "Why didn't you investigate it back then? Why did you just believe her?" "Because I was destroyed. Because the pain was so deep, I wanted to believe the worst so I could justify my anger." Leonardo took a small step toward her, stopping when she instinctively pulled back. "And when Mariana came back with those photos of you, for a split second, that trauma returned. That fear of being deceived again. But Sophia, it was just a second. 1 second I hate myself for letting happen. That second destroyed everything, Leonardo. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn your trust back if you'll let me." He sank to his knees in front of her, tears falling freely. "I made the worst mistake of my life. I let Mariana's ghost poison what we had. But Sophia, I never truly doubted you. My heart always knew the truth. It was only my broken mind that hesitated." Sophia looked at him, this powerful man kneeling in her parents' living room, crying, shattered, and something softened inside her. "The divorce was finalized yesterday," Leonardo said. "For real this time. 3 different judges verified all the paperwork. Mariana has no power over me anymore, and she's being charged with fraud, document forgery, and extortion. She's going to pay for everything she did." "That doesn't change the fact that you doubted me." "It doesn't. Nothing can. But Sophia, I'm going to therapy 3 times a week with a specialist in betrayal trauma. I'm working through my issues, facing my fears, learning not to let the past poison the present. He held out his hands, pleading, I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But please give me a chance to rebuild it, a chance to prove that the man who loves you is stronger than the man who was destroyed by her. Sophia closed her eyes as tears fell. Mateus kicked hard, as if adding his own opinion. I need time, she said at last. As much time as you need. I'll wait. Leonardo rose slowly. Can I feel him? Just for a second. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. Leonardo approached gently, placing his hand over her belly with reverence. Mateus kicked immediately, and Leonardo let out a broken laugh. Hey, little one, your dad messed up. Badly, but he's going to fix it, I promise. Sophia gently moved his hand away. You can come to the medical appointments. You can be there when he's born, but the rest, I need time, Leonardo. I understand. I'll send you the therapy reports if you want them. I'll prove it to you day after day, and when you're ready, if you ever are, I'll be here. He left, leaving the folder with all the evidence behind. Sophia sat on the sofa and read every document, every confession, every proof of Mariana's setup, and she cried. With anger, with relief, with grief for everything that had been broken. Carmen sat beside her. Do you still love him? Yes, Sophia admitted, but I don't know if love is enough. Love is never enough on its own. You need trust, work, daily choice. But sweetheart, that man is fighting. He's trying. The real question is, are you willing to fight too? Sophia didn't know how to answer. The following weeks were filled with a quiet tension. Leonardo attended every medical appointment, sitting in the waiting room until Sophia called him in. He didn't pressure her, didn't beg. He was simply there. He brought gifts for Mateus, tiny clothes, children's books, a teddy bear that had belonged to him when he was a child. For when he's born, Leonardo always said, with a sad smile. Sophia accepted everything in silence. She read the therapy reports he sent religiously every week. She could see that Leonardo truly was working on himself, facing traumas he had buried for years. But the fear remained. The fear that the hesitation of 1 second could happen again. At 7 months pregnant, the court summons arrived. The case against Mariana was finally going to trial. Document fraud, extortion, defamation. Sophia was subpoenaed as a witness. You don't have to go, Leonardo said at that week's appointment. My lawyer can request exemption because of the pregnancy. I want to go, Sophia answered firmly. I want to look her in the eyes and show her she didn't break me. The day of the trial arrived on a sweltering September morning. Sophia wore a navy maternity dress, her 7-month belly prominent. Leonardo accompanied her to the courthouse, keeping a respectful distance but always close enough if she needed him. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, onlookers, investors wanting to witness the unfolding scandal. And there was Mariana, sitting beside her lawyers, impeccably dressed in white, as if she were the victim. The trial began. Witnesses were called. Vito Rice, the photographer, confessed everything. How Mariana approached him, how much she paid, how he manipulated the photos. Marcelo Ferreira, the registry office employee, admitted he had been bribed to sabotage the divorce paperwork. Then it was Felipe Navarro's turn. He entered trembling, guilt weighing on every step. He looked at Leonardo, then at Mariana. It was a lie, he said, his voice breaking. There was no 3-year affair. It was one night. One stupid night when we were both drunk at a party. The next day I was drowning in guilt and told Leonardo immediately. And why lie about the duration? The prosecutor asked. Because Mariana blackmailed me. She said she'd tell my pregnant wife at the time that she'd ruin my architecture firm unless I claimed it was a long-term affair. I was a coward. I was scared. So I lied. And I destroyed my best friend in the process. Sophia saw Leonardo close his eyes, the pain of the revelation cutting through his expression. 5 years believing a lie, 5 years of hatred built on a fabrication. When it was Sophia's turn to testify, she climbed the stand slowly, her belly heavy. Mariana watched her with contempt. "Miss Almeida," Mariana's lawyer began. "Or should I say Mrs. Santoro?" "Oh, wait, the marriage was invalid, wasn't it? The marriage was officialized after correcting the fraud your client committed," Sophia replied calmly. "Don't you find it convenient that you became pregnant right after discovering you could receive a fortune in a possible divorce?" Sophia felt anger boil, but kept her voice steady. "I love my husband, and this baby was conceived with love, not financial interest, something your client clearly doesn't understand." "Objection," the lawyer barked. "Sustained," the judge replied. "Miss Almeida, stick to the facts." That was when Sophia felt it, a sharp pain unlike anything before, slicing across her abdomen. She gasped, grabbing her belly. "Sophia!" Leonardo stood up instantly. Another pain, stronger this time, and then she felt warm liquid running down her legs. "My water broke," she whispered, trembling. "The baby. It's too early. It can't be now." Chaos erupted in the courtroom. Leonardo ran to her, catching her in his arms. "Ambulance! Somebody call an ambulance!" "Leonardo, it's too early," Sophia cried, clutching his shirt. 7 months. He's not ready." "He's going to be okay. Our boy is strong." Leonardo carried her out of the courtroom without waiting for help. He placed her in his car and sped toward the hospital. On the way, contractions came fast and brutal. Sophia screamed, gripping Leonardo's hand while he drove one-handed, the other clutching hers, speakerphone connected to the hospital's emergency team. "Hold on, my love. 5 more minutes. 5 minutes and we'll be there." They reached the hospital in record time. A medical team was already waiting with a stretcher. They rushed Sophia straight into labor and delivery, Leonardo running beside her. "Sir, you need to wait. I'm the father. I'm staying with her," Leonardo shouted with a ferocity that brooked no argument. Labor was brutal. 10 hours of pain, fear, doctors murmuring about premature birth, about risks, about the NICU. Sophia screamed, cried, crushed Leonardo's hand with a grip strong enough to leave marks. "I can't," she sobbed. "Leonardo, I can't." "You can. You are the strongest woman I know." He kissed her forehead, wiped her sweat, whispered encouragement. "Our boy is waiting to meet you. Just a little more." And then, at 11 that night, after 10 hours of battle, a thin but powerful cry filled the room. Mateus Leonardo Santoro was born weighing 2 kilos and 200 grams, tiny, but with strong lungs. The doctors wrapped him quickly, checking him, monitoring his vitals. "He's breathing on his own," the pediatrician announced. "That's a very good sign. But he'll need to stay in the neonatal ICU for a few weeks." "Can I see him?" Sophia begged, exhausted but desperate. A nurse brought the tiny bundle and placed him in her arms for just 1 minute. Mateus was perfect, tiny, with dark hair like his father, eyes closed, hands the size of coins. "Hi, my love," Sophia whispered, tears falling. "You're so strong, so perfect." Leonardo stood beside her, openly crying as he touched his son's tiny cheek. "He's perfect, Sophia. He's absolutely perfect." Then they took Mateus to the NICU, and Sophia felt as if they had torn part of her away. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of their lives. Mateus fought in the incubator, gaining weight slowly, learning to feed, overcoming every obstacle with determination. Sophia and Leonardo practically lived at the hospital, taking turns so their son was never alone. It was during those long nights in the NICU, watching their baby fight for his life, that Sophia finally understood. Love wasn't perfect. People weren't perfect. Leonardo had made a mistake, a terrible one, but he was fighting to fix it. Just as Mateus fought to survive, Leonardo fought to become better. One night, with Mateus sleeping peacefully in the incubator, Sophia took Leonardo's hand. "I forgive you," she whispered. Leonardo stared at her, eyes wide. "What?" "I forgive you. For what happened. For the doubt. For everything." She squeezed his hand. "Because our son is here fighting and he needs both of us. And because I still love you, despite everything." Leonardo pulled her into an embrace, crying into her shoulder. "I promise I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice." And as Mateus slept, surrounded by machines but alive and strong, a family finally began to heal. Mateus was discharged from the neonatal ICU 6 weeks after he was born, weighing 3.5 kilos, strong, healthy, and perfect. The day Sophia and Leonardo finally brought their son home was one of the happiest of their lives. Leonardo drove through the city at 15 kilometers per hour, paranoid about every speed bump, every turn. "Leonardo, we'll take 3 hours to get home at this pace," Sophia laughed, looking back at Mateus sleeping peacefully in his car seat. "I'm carrying the most precious thing in the world. I'm not taking risks." The first months were challenging. Sleepless nights, feedings every 3 hours, unexplained cries that left them both exhausted and desperate. But they faced it together. Leonardo woke up for every nighttime feeding, changed diapers, and soothed Mateus in his arms while humming made-up lullabies. Therapy continued. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Leonardo attended his sessions religiously. Sophia started going too, sometimes alone, sometimes with him for couple sessions. They learned to communicate better, to recognize triggers, to rebuild trust brick by brick. "Trauma doesn't disappear," the therapist explained, "but you can learn not to let it run your lives." And they learned. Slowly, painfully, but they learned. They created rituals. Breakfast at 7 in the morning, even with Mateus crying in the background. Evening walks, now pushing a stroller. And every night, before bed, Leonardo read aloud, now for Mateus, who listened with wide eyes as if he understood every word. When Mateus turned 1, Sophia returned to her pedagogy studies. Leonardo transformed part of his office into a study space for her. Desk, computer, bookshelves. "You sacrificed your dreams for me," he told her. "Now it's time to reclaim them." Sophia graduated 3 years later, emotional as she received her diploma, while Leonardo and Mateus applauded from the audience. When Mateus was 4, Sophia discovered she was pregnant again. This time it was planned, wanted, celebrated. Helena was born weighing 3 kilos and 800 grams, right on time at 38 weeks, with her mother's brown eyes and a cry that sounded like a song. "A girl!" Leonardo cried as he held her for the first time. "We have a princess!" Mateus, 4 years old, looked at his little sister with curiosity. "She's so small. I have to protect her, right, Dad?" "Yes, son, always." 2 years later came the twins, Gabriel and Raphael, identical in everything except personality. Gabriel was calm and observant, just like Leonardo. Raphael was pure energy, always laughing, always exploring. 3 children somehow turned into 4. Sophia laughed, exhausted but happy, watching Leonardo juggle 2 crying babies. "Our house looks like a happy zoo," Leonardo said, kissing both tiny heads. "And I wouldn't trade it for anything." Livia was born 3 years later, a sweet surprise, with fiery red hair inherited from Sophia's grandmother. She was stubborn, determined, and knew exactly what she wanted from day one. And then, when Sophia was 38 and Leonardo 53, the youngest arrived. Giovanna was born on a spring morning, small and delicate, with her father's eyes. 6 children, Leonardo said, amazed, holding the newborn while the other 5 crowded around the hospital bed. "We made 6 perfect human beings." "Did you want more?" Sophia teased, exhausted but glowing. "I wanted everything life with you could give me, and it gave me more than I ever dreamed." The glass mansion in Parity transformed completely. The minimalist walls now displayed framed children's drawings. The pristine living room became an ocean of toys. The once sepulchral silence was replaced by laughter, screaming, music, life. Leonardo learned to lock his office only during work hours. The rest of the time, he was a full-time father, helping with homework, playing soccer on the beach, reading bedtime stories to 6 children who never got tired of listening to his voice. Sophia opened a small preschool in Parity for children from the community. Fulfilling her dream of being a teacher, Leonardo funded everything, proud of the wife who changed lives every day. The scars remained. There were days when the trauma resurfaced, a news story about betrayal, an innocent comment that triggered old memories. But now they knew how to handle it. They talked, supported each other, reminded themselves of everything they had built. "Do you still think about her?" Sophia asked one night, lying in bed after tucking 6 children in. "Who?" Leonardo asked, genuinely confused. "Mariana." He turned to face her. "Sophia, I barely even remember her face. That was another life. An empty life. This," he gestured toward the house full of life, "this is real. You and our 6 miracles are the only things that matter." Sophia smiled, kissing him softly. "We made it, didn't we?" "We did. Against all odds, we built something beautiful." The years passed in a happy blur of birthdays, graduations, first words, first steps. Mateus grew up serious and protective, always watching over his siblings. Helena became a dancer. The twins were inseparable, finishing each other's sentences. Livia decided at 8 years old she would be president. And Giovanna, the youngest, was the heart of the family, always hugging everyone, always wise beyond her years. Leonardo aged gracefully. His hair turned grey, the lines around his eyes deepened, but he was more handsome than ever, because he was happy, truly happy in a way he had never been before. And Sophia, at 48, looked at the life she had built and barely recognized the 23-year-old girl who had agreed to marry for a contract. That frightened girl had become a strong woman, mother of 6, beloved wife, respected teacher. "Was it worth it?" Leonardo asked one night, the two of them alone on the veranda while the children slept. Every hard second, every tear, every moment of doubt. It was all worth it to get here. He pulled her in for a kiss, and after 25 years together, there was still magic in that touch. The Santoro family wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was theirs, and it was more than enough. The invitation simply read, 25 years of love built from the ground up. Celebrate with us. Sophia and Leonardo had planned the celebration for months. They wanted it to be perfect, not because of extravagance, but because of meaning. 25 years since that cold, contractual wedding at the Hotel Fasano. 25 years of a journey neither of them could have imagined. The party would be held in the gardens of their mansion in Leblon, the property Leonardo had bought 10 years earlier, when the family became too big for the house in Parity, a vast place overlooking the beach, surrounded by tropical gardens, with room for 6 children, 3 dogs, and the beautiful chaos that defined the Santoro household. On the morning of the big day, the house was a whirlwind. Helena, now 17, was arguing with 14-year-old Livia about which dress to wear. The twins, Gabriel and Raphael, 16, were helping their father adjust the garden lights. 10-year-old Giovanna sat in her mother's lap as Sophia finished her makeup. "Mum, are you two going to tell the real story today?" Giovanna asked, playing with Sophia's pearl necklace. "The real story?" Sophia smiled. "Mateus said you two got married for money. Is that true?" Sophia exchanged a look with Leonardo, who had just walked in wearing a navy blue suit, effortlessly elegant. "It's true," Leonardo said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Your grandpa Antonio was in financial trouble, and I needed a wife for business reasons. It was an arrangement, a contract." "But you love each other now," Giovanna stated, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "We do," Leonardo said, but it wasn't love at first sight. It was love built brick by brick, day after day, choice after choice. Giovanna nodded thoughtfully. So it's better, right? Because you chose it. It wasn't luck, it was work. Sophia hugged her tightly, eyes welling up. You're far too wise for 10. The guests started arriving at 6. There were 300 people, family, friends, colleagues, parents of students from Sophia's school. Donna Teresa was there, now 85, still with that warm smile. Dr. Henrique, the lawyer who had once presented the marriage proposal, arrived with his wife. Even Felipe Navarro attended, after years of slow but sincere reconciliation with Leonardo. You two accomplished the impossible, Felipe said, embracing him. You built a beautiful family out of something that started so transactional. We had luck. And therapy. A lot of therapy, Leonardo laughed. By 8 o'clock the party was in full swing. Live music, plenty of food, children running through the garden. Sophia wore a champagne silk gown Leonardo had chosen for her. He hadn't taken his eyes off her all night. You're looking at me the same way you did 25 years ago, she teased. That's not true, he said softly. 25 years ago I barely looked at you. Today I can't stop. Then Mateus stepped onto the small stage set up in the garden. At 25, he looked just like his father, tall, broad-shouldered, intense-eyed, but with a softness Leonardo had only developed years later. Good evening, everyone, Mateus began, his voice echoing through the garden. For those who don't know me, I'm Mateus, the oldest child of this incredible couple celebrating 25 years today. Applause erupted. Sophia and Leonardo intertwined their fingers. My parents don't have a traditional story, Mateus continued. It wasn't love at first sight. It was an arranged marriage, a business contract meant to last 2 years. He looked at them. But what actually happened was that two broken people found healing in each other. Helena joined him on stage. Our father had been shattered by betrayal. He built walls so high no one could reach him, and our mother sacrificed her dreams to save her family. Gabriel took the mic next. But slowly, things changed. Dad started coming down for meals again. Mom began to see beyond the coldness, and on a stormy night, everything broke and rebuilt into something better. Raphael stood beside him. They went through things that would have destroyed most couples. Doubt, manipulation from others, a premature birth that almost cost both mine and Mateus's lives. But they chose to stay. They chose to fight. Then Livia stepped up, her voice steady. They taught us that real love isn't the kind you see in movies. It's waking up every day and choosing the other person. It's going to therapy when things get hard. It's apologizing when you're wrong. It's rebuilding after everything falls apart. Finally, little Giovanna took the mic. Her voice was small but clear, and they taught us that it doesn't matter how something starts. What matters is what you choose to build from it. They started as strangers and became the greatest love story I know. The 6 children looked at their parents. So thank you for teaching us that true love isn't found. It's built. One day at a time, one choice at a time. Forever. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Sophia cried openly, Leonardo beside her with tears streaming down his face. They went on stage and hugged all 6 children, a mountain of limbs and love. When the music resumed, Leonardo pulled Sophia into a dance. For the first time in 25 years, they danced the waltz they never danced at their wedding. Do you regret it? He whispered as they swayed. Regret agreeing to the contract? Never. It was the best decision of my life. Even with all the pain, everything I put you through, Sophia placed a hand on his cheek, especially because of that. The pain taught us to value joy. The suffering made us stronger. And every scar reminds us of how hard we fought to be here. Leonardo kissed her right there under the fairy lights, to the applause of everyone around. Mateus watched them, then turned to his fiancée, Ana Paula. When we get married, I want them to tell the whole story. The real one, every difficult part. Why, she asked. Because people think love is easy, that finding the right person is enough. But my parents taught me that love is work, it's choice, it's forgiveness. And I want our guests to know that, to see that something beautiful can come from something imperfect. The celebration lasted until dawn, laughter, dancing, stories retold. And when the last guest left, when the 6 children finally fell asleep, Sophia and Leonardo stayed on the balcony overlooking the ocean. 25 years, he murmured, and I love you more today than ever before. That's because today you truly know me, my flaws, my fears, my imperfections, and you still choose to stay. I'll always choose to stay. They listened to the waves. 2 people who had once been strangers and were now everything to each other. And the question that had changed everything echoed in Sophia's mind. Can I keep going? After 25 years, the answer remained the same. Yes. Always yes. Forever yes. The party had ended hours ago. The last guests left with long hugs and soft promises to visit soon. The 6 children climbed to their rooms, sleepy, laughing, content, leaving the house in a rare and cherished silence. Sophia and Leonardo stayed on the balcony, nestled together in the double hammock he had installed years earlier. Above them, stars scattered across the Leblon sky. "Are you tired?" Leonardo asked, wrapping an arm around her. "Exhausted," Sophia admitted. "But I don't want this day to end." "Then it won't. We'll stretch it out just a little longer." They listened to the waves crashing in the distance, the only soundtrack they needed. Leonardo took her hand, gently tracing every line, every mark, the wedding band she'd never taken off. "Do you remember the kiss at the altar?" he asked suddenly. Sophia laughed under her breath. "How could I forget? The most lifeless kiss in history. 3 seconds of contractual obligation. I was terrified that day," he confessed. "Not of you, of myself, of dragging someone into my emotional mess. I felt like an imposter wearing a wedding ring. And now this ring is the truest thing I own, along with you and our 6 miracles." Sophia turned to look at him. At 48, Leonardo's hair was fully grey, lines gathered around his eyes from years of smiling, and the slight softness around his middle that he insisted was dad muscle. But to her, he had never been more beautiful. "Sabe o que mais me surpreende," she said softly. "It's not that we stayed together. It's how we changed together. We grew together," he said, touching her cheek. "We transformed together. And we're still transforming. In another 25 years, we'll be different people again. But we'll be different together." They sat in a comfortable silence, just breathing the same air. Then Sophia asked, "Do you think our children will find what we found?" "I think they'll find what's meant for them," Leonardo said. "Mateus is ready for his own life now. Helena shines on stage. The twins have each other. That alone is a blessing. Livia will take over the world, and Giovanna," he smiled, "Giovanna will be exactly whatever she chooses to be." "You're proud of them?" Sophia asked. "Immensely. But do you know who I'm most proud of?" "Who?" "You." He turned fully toward her. "You took an impossible situation and turned it into a family. You loved me when I was impossible to love. You forgave me when I didn't deserve forgiveness. You built a life so beautiful, I sometimes wake up and need to pinch myself to believe it's real." Sophia felt tears spill over. "Leonardo, let me finish," he whispered. "For 25 years you've been my best friend, my partner, the mother of my children, my safe place, and I know I wasn't easy. I know I made you cry more times than I should have, but Sophia, you saved me. You truly saved me from a life without meaning." "We saved each other," she corrected gently. "You gave me a life I never dreamed of. You gave me 6 children who are my world. You gave me a love that wasn't easy, but was real." He kissed her then, not with urgency, but with depth. A kiss layered with 25 years of shared battles, shared laughter, shared healing. When they pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. From an arranged marriage to 6 kids and a grandchild on the way, he whispered. How did that happen? Breakfast at 7, walks at sunset, books read aloud, holding hands through every storm. She smiled. We built it, one brick at a time. He hesitated, then asked, if you went back in time, knowing all the pain ahead, would you still say yes? Sophia didn't pause. Without hesitation, because all the pain brought us here. And here is where I always wanted to be. They settled back into the hammock, bodies fitting together with the ease of a lifetime spent learning each other. Leonardo, Sophia murmured sleepily. Yes? Can I keep going? Another 25 years with you? It was the question he had asked her on their first real night together, a question that had never really been about the moment, but about a future. Leonardo pulled her closer, kissed her head and whispered, yes. Always yes. Forever yes. And as dawn painted the sky above Leblon in shades of pink and gold, Sophia fell asleep in the arms of the man who had once been a stranger, then a husband on paper, then her greatest love, and finally, her forever. Their story wasn't about perfect love. It was about built love, chosen love, rebuilt love, 2 broken people who ended up whole, because in the end, love that lasts isn't the one you find, it's the one you build, brick by brick, day by day, yes after yes. The legacy of love they built together, 25 years, 6 children, thousands of breakfasts shared, countless storms weathered hand in hand. Sophia and Leonardo proved that true love doesn't show up ready-made. It's built with patience, forgiveness, and daily choices. From the cold kiss at the altar to the hammock where they fell asleep intertwined, they turned a business contract into the most genuine love story they could have lived. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect. But it was theirs. And in the end, maybe that's exactly what true love means. Not finding the right person, but choosing to be the right person every single day for the rest of your life. And you? Do you believe love can be built even when everything seems impossible? If this story touched your heart, leave a like so more people can find this message of hope. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that speak straight to the soul. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? Your support is what allows us to keep sharing narratives like this. Stories that remind us that new beginnings are possible, that forgiveness heals, and that true love is worth every battle.